All right, welcome back to AJM in the AM. I'm Anthony Merrill, or AJM in the PM because of where we stream, but it is AM somewhere, and I have a demographic out there in the Philippines. So this is for you guys for the AM. Now, this is the final division as NBA tip-off is tomorrow, Tuesday, October 24th. Now, final division, Northwest Division. It is no secret. I am a Portland Trailblazer fan. I've been a fan of them my entire life, even though I'm from the greater New York area. Now, greater New York area. That sounds kind of mean, right? There's other places in New York, right? There's upstate. It's basically South Canada, though. But going forward, totally going off on a tangent here. The Portland Trailblazers is where we're going to start, right? I'm not going to go anywhere else. This is a phenomenal division, the home of the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. But we're going to start with, what I'm passionate about, which is going to be Portland. Now, we had a horrible season last year. Now, that horrible season culminated in us getting the 5th overall pick, which got moved up through the draft lottery as the number 3 overall pick. And it also ended up with the end of the Damian Lillard Portland Trail Blazer era. Now, if you were to grade an offseason for a team that has a homegrown superstar, one of the best players in the world, one of the best players in the history of the game, top 75 player as voted on by his peers, it would be considered a massive failure, right? That is typically how most people should view the loss of a superstar, yet alone in the way that it happened. The media circus, right? I got to show the jersey. I will in a second. So, what happened, right? Dame requests a trade. Hey, you guys aren't building a winner. What are you going to get back for Dame? He wanted to go to Miami and only Miami. He ended up on the Milwaukee Bucks. So Portland was busy, right? They lost Drew Eubanks, Keon, Dame, Nasir Little, Nurkic, Reddish, TJ Watford, or Trenton Watford, who we just got rid of inextricably for no reason. And Justice Winslow is also out the door. Now, what did we bring in, right? You lost a lot. Well, you get DeAndre Ayton, former number 1 overall draft pick by the Phoenix Suns. You bring back Malcolm Brogdon. You bring on Moses Brown, Tamani Kamara, Scoot Henderson. I got the jersey on. That's what Mandy's trying to point out. Chris Murray, Duop Reith, Rayan Rupert, and Time Lord Rob Williams, right? Which is a phenomenal haul. Not to mention the first overall picks, but that's not really what we're going to be touching on here. So you expedite a rebuild for the price of Damian Lillard. Now, Portland was already full and rife of promising young talent, players like Anthony Simons, who was phenomenal in time without Dame. I believe he was averaging something like 28 points a game in the 11 games that Dame did not play, that Anthony Simons did play. And Shaedon Sharpe, who at the second half of the season was one of the better rookies in the year. He was putting up like 20 points a night and ended up making an all rookie team. The Blazers turned Lillard and Nurk, 2 of their aging core, for a haul of players, young players that fit a new timeline, as well as 3 first-round picks and 2 swaps that are way down the line, right? You're going to get Milwaukee 2029, Boston 2029, this year's Golden State Warriors pick, and Milwaukee 2028 swap and 2030 swap as well. This team also has some decent talent in terms of adding Brogdon and Robert Williams. You're getting one of the better defenders, interior defenders in Robert Williams, and the reigning 6th man of the year in Malcolm Brogdon, alongside the already set core of Scoot, Sharpe, Simons, and now DeAndre Ayton. Those 6 players are really, really good, and that doesn't even include Matisse Thybulle and Jeremy Grant. So what is the expectation of this team, right? The worst place to be in the NBA is in the middle. You either want to be really, really good or really, really bad. And if you find yourself somewhere in that, hey, we won 35 games and we were the 9th seed in the East or the 9th seed in the West, you're in the worst spot possible because you're at the back end of the lottery. And your team's still not good enough to win games as is, unless you have a superstar, someone along the lines of a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, someone that can be the focal point of a team, and you can use those middle draft picks to kind of build around. So that's what Denver did, but they had a generational talent, so they were able to use those picks on some swings, right? Some players like Michael Porter Jr. We can take a gamble because we already have this guy, and we know he's only going to get better. Unless you have that, being there is the worst possible place. So Portland has a team that looks like it can win. If you scroll through Trailblazers Twitter, it looks like everybody thinks they're going to be successful. Potential play-in berths. I don't think so. I'm on the opposite side. I actually bet the under for them, which was 28.5. I don't think they're going to be a good team, and they should be fighting to not be a good team. I know this upcoming draft class is not exactly ideal, but Portland, the worst place you can be is in the middle. You don't want to win those 30-something games. This is going to be a really exciting team with incredible upside and talent. I'm a huge Scoot Henderson fan. One of my first videos on this channel was talking about Scoot Henderson is not just a consolation prize alongside Victor Wembanyama. He's a phenomenal player, and somehow he fell to us at 3. So super excited to see what's going to happen there. But they're not going to win more than 23 games. This is going to be a bad team full of young mistakes. And we're going to see, I think, a bit of a huge step forward for someone like Anthony Simons, a guy who in the preseason was dominant, came out there, was giving you some crazy points. And we're going to see DeAndre Ayton kind of fill in a bit of a role we never saw him in the NBA. We're going to see him do some post moves. We're going to see him average 20 and 10 like Zach Randolph back in the day for the Portland Trailblazers. It's going to be really exciting, but don't be excited to watch a team win. This is a rebuild. This is what a rebuild looks like. And if we are too good, we're going to lose out on our top 14 protected pick that's going to Chicago this year. And we have the chance to have 2 first-rounders in this draft class. And I know it seems like there's not going to be a good draft class, but you never know. Something crazy might happen. One of these young, talented players maybe has one of those crazy March Madnesses, and then his stock just skyrockets and becomes one of the better players. And the Blazers will have a chance to get that player. Hopefully. We will see. Now, we have the Denver Nuggets, the defending NBA champions. 53-29 last year. They went all the way, and they were just dominant in doing so. They dispatched some of the best interior defenders the league has to offer. Rudy Gobert, no match for Jokic. Anthony Davis, no match for Jokic. Bam Adebayo, no match for Jokic. The Denver Nuggets were straight up just bullies. I haven't seen a dominant playoff run like that in a long time, and they did so. So, they were pretty busy this offseason for a team that really, for all intents and purposes, had a perfect roster, right? Bruce Brown gone, now on the Indiana Pacers. Obviously, they couldn't afford to keep him because he signed for $22 million, just money Denver did not have the ability to retain him with. Jeff Green is now gone. He got paid by the Houston Rockets. Say what you will about Jeff Green. I know he's older, but he was valuable on that team in their playoff run. And now they don't really bring back much, right? They got Justin Holiday, a handful of rookies. We'll see what the rookies become if they're NBA ready today. I don't watch college. I'm pretty open about that. I don't know who these players are. I also believe that college can kind of lie to you with these players. Sometimes they look phenomenal and sometimes they're not. So we got to see what they actually become. Christian Braun ended up being one of the better rookies in the draft class. He was NBA ready, and he was able to give them some dynamite minutes, especially in their playoff run. And now I expect him, or Christian Braun, right? It's spelled Braun, but pronounced Brown. They don't know how to use letters in some places. So Christian Braun is now going to be filling in, I believe, that Bruce Brown role. And we'll see if one of these rookies can fill in that Christian Braun role. Even so, despite them losing some of their talent, Bruce Brown, Ish Smith, Jeff Green, their main core is still intact. Jokic is still here. He's going nowhere. Jamal Murray is still here. Aaron Gordon is still here. KCP, Michael Porter Jr., they're all suited up. And I just said Christian Braun as well. So the core of this team that made them successful, that made them champions, are going to be back for this season. Now, can you expect, something is in my eye, can you expect more success from this team? Yes, they should be absolute championship favorites, because despite them only having one All-Star, right? Jamal Murray hasn't been an All-Star. They have the perfect complementary talent around that generational superstar. Jamal Murray and Jokic are potentially the best duo in the league. And I know Dame and Giannis just got put together, but we have to see how it works. We know this works. But when they were healthy previously in the bubble, they made the conference championship. Like, they were right there. They came this close to an NBA Finals. And then Murray got hurt. And before he got hurt, they were looking to do it again. Like, they were that damn good. So despite there being whatever perceived gap in talent between Jokic and Murray, I don't think there is that much of a gap. I think Murray is one of the better point guards in the league, although he doesn't get the accoladed credit to put him there. They fit perfectly. Aaron Gordon could not be a better power forward to play alongside Nikola Jokic, a dynamite defender, an extremely good rim runner, and some of the best hands in the game for one of the best passers in the game, if not the best passer. KCP, a phenomenal 3-and-D player, a prototype. If you were to draw one up and create one, KCP is probably what you made. A dynamite three-point shooter that has the ability to take a player off the dribble and make pull-up jump shots, which is probably the hardest skill to have in the NBA, and also as a dynamite defender. And Michael Porter Jr., who I still think he's overpaid because of the injury history and the injury woes and expectations you could have around him, is one of the best three-point shooters in the game. He was something in like the 91st percentile when it came to points per possession off of catch and shoot threes. Just incredibly talented. And then in the postseason, we saw something that we hadn't seen yet. Someone that was 6'9", putting his defense to the test. Like, he was actually defending people, and he did a damn good job of it. And then Christian Braun is just a really good do-it-all player. Does the dirty work, good defender, can fill in spots, is a great rim runner, and a good shooter. There is no injury insurance, though, right? That's something that I put a lot of emphasis on, because there's going to be a stretch in the season where someone's going to miss time. And outside of, Murray being taken out for Reggie Jackson, there's no one else on this roster that can fill in even a percentage of what that core 4 or core 5 can bring. So the plethora of incoming rookies just doesn't fill in a gap that may sustain them for a prolonged period of time if, God forbid, Jamal Murray goes out for a month, or God forbid, Nikola Jokic goes out for a month. However, none of those middle months matter, especially if they make the playoffs, which they more than likely will, if not lead the Western Conference. There is nothing less than 50 wins happening for this roster. Nikola Jokic can drag you to 45 wins by himself. We saw him do it, and he won an MVP for it. They should still be the front runner in the West. They should still be the front runner for an NBA championship overall, league-wide, and it's not slowing down. They need to find a way to bring in some rest throughout the course of the regular season, which they will, as long as Jokic is healthy. He can carry any of these incoming rookies to a couple of wins, right? To get Murray off of his knees, to get Michael Porter Jr. off of his back, and stuff like that. But a great team. A very, very, very good team. And they're looking to capitalize on the success that they've built over the last half decade. Another team that was incredibly busy, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they finished 42-40, which I think was a bit of a disappointment considering where they were the year before last, right? That 2022 season, they were amazing. And we expected, I think, a bit of a bigger jump for someone like Anthony Edwards, who was still awesome. Don't get me wrong. But I think that a lot of us had superstardom written, and he kind of showed flashes still in greater sample sizes. But it wasn't the same caliber that I think most of us had predicted leading up to this season or last season. Now, Minnesota did lose Jalen Noel, a player that I'm very fond of. They lost Taurean Prince, who is gone to the Lakers now, and Austin Rivers, who is just Austin Rivers. And what did they add? They bring on Troy Brown Jr. and Shake Milton for the most part. They extend out Jaden McDaniels, the best defender in the league right now. He just got a big payday. The potential is there. He can be a sensational player. I think the payday of 5 years, $136 million might be a little steep, but we don't know what that contract is going to look like when the CBA keeps kicking in and players keep getting paid more and more. So we'll see. The Timberwolves have done a phenomenal job drafting, right? Success has layers in every single aspect of the NBA, right? So if you draft in your first overall pick, I know you got the first overall pick, but you can get a bust, right? I'm a Blazers fan. We got Greg Oden. We passed up on Kevin Durant. A complete opportunity to do so. The Timberwolves nailed their early picks with players like Karl Anthony Towns, players like Anthony Edwards. They nailed their back-end picks with players like Jaden McDaniels, like Jalen Noel. They've done a phenomenal job drafting and bringing in talent. All of those players that got shipped out from the Gobert trade are all sensationally talented players. Zach LaVine, another really good player coming out of the Minnesota like draft study, I guess. They've done a phenomenal job drafting. And this team is kind of stacked. You look at what they have a really good core. They seem to be committed to this combination of mid-tier like aging all-star and Gobert and Conley, and they have these two bright young studs in Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, now Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid as well. The Gobert Cat mixture didn't really work early on, but towards the end of the season, it started to show some signs of success. Kirk says, who in this division makes the playoffs? That's a really, really good question. Denver, I think, obviously, they should be favorited to make the playoffs. Minnesota should be in the playoff mix, but it's tough. I think they're probably going to be in that play-in position again because the West is incredibly loaded. And I think the Thunder are going to be another team that's going to be in the postseason this year. So I can guarantee Denver. I would lean heavily towards the Thunder, and I would put Minnesota, which we'll talk more about in a little bit, towards like that bottom end, the 8, 9, 10 seed. But they're going to be a hell of an elimination, right? Whoever gets them, if they happen to land the 7th seed through the play-in or they get the 8th seed in the play-in, if you're that 1 or 2 seed, like, you don't want to see them either. You know what I mean? It's a tough division or conference rather. And this is just one of those teams that they can be there, but a lot of it's going to be hedged on the bet of Anthony Edwards taking another huge step forward, which we will go into. So I just talked about Gobert and Cat finally starting to see some chemistry towards the end of the season. A lot of it was just they both play the same position, right? They both are 5s. And now you're putting Karl-Anthony Towns in a bit of a position he hasn't played much in recent years, putting him back at the 4. Now he has to learn how to, not rim run, right? Gobert's there. Gobert's going to rim run. If you rim run too, you're clogging the paint. You got to hit the stretch. You got to go to the corner, right? Which is a weird position for a player that has done both. Now you can't rim run because Gobert is there, and he doesn't have any offensive talent outside of 3 feet, which actually is why it worked with Naz Reid. When Gobert played in Naz Reid minutes on the side, they were a dynamic duo. They actually worked out really well. And as I said, the Wolves have done a great job drafting talent. I think that's probably why they were so comfortable trading those draft picks, because they knew that the ones that they had, if they were on the back end, they were going to do a good job anyway. With another step forward from Anthony Edwards, better continuity from Towns and Gobert, I think this Wolves team will be feisty, right? Even if they're a back-end playoff team, they can probably steal a series. And I would have no doubt in my mind that is a possibility. And now they have Jaden McDaniels locked up, and he's one of the best strap perimeter defenders the league has to offer. And he did it to the best players in the league, too. It wasn't even like he was defending the 2nd or 3rd star. He was defending LeBron James. He was defending Kawhi Leonard. He was defending Kevin Durant. And he did a damn good job on them, about as good of a job as you can do against those kinds of players. Locking them up. And he has the size and strength to keep up with players like LeBron. He has the speed and athleticism to keep up with, these shifty point guards like Stephen Curry. He's able to put them on his back and just lock them down. And then I feel like, and a lot of what we see with Minnesota, we forget about Mike Conley, right? I know he's older. He's not the same player he was in his Utah Jazz days, but he's still really good for a guy who's in his mid-30s. He was one of the best pick-and-roll ball handlers in the game. His points per possession on pick and roll attempts was he was one of the league leaders. Like, it was like the 85th percentile or 90th percentile. He's awesome. So while the Wolves are still now bereft of draft picks going forward, obviously that Gobert trade killed them, they should still be able to sift out talent going forward. But now they're also kind of in cap hell, right? They're tied to supermax contracts to Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, the end of Mike Conley's contract, and now Jaden McDaniels is going to be getting paid massively going forward. So what does that mean for them with how are they going to sign players? I think they're just going to have to figure it out. They're going to probably move on from Karl-Anthony Towns if things don't go in the right direction. And that may not be a bad move. Trading out that $45 million for a couple of players in that like $10 to $15, $20 million range that are talented, some of those Knicks players, I know he's been tied to them, that could be beneficial for them in the long run. They're not going to be able to get off the Gobert contract, though, so they're going to have to figure something out, more than likely with Karl-Anthony Towns. They're going to try to salvage it. However, this is a really good team. I have an expectation of like 45 to 50 wins. A lot of it is going to be predicated on the continuity of the core that they have here. And for the most part, I think that's going to go really well for them. They have some solid depth going 10 players deep, despite the fact that they traded so much last year. The fact that they were able to salvage depth despite trading, I think it was like 7 players, is pretty incredible. Next up, another young and exciting team that has just nothing but potential. We're looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder. I believe their over-under was like 42 wins. I went with the over because it is very hard to see this team being worse than they were last year. They're adding Chet Holmgren, who was the number 1 overall pick last year or 2 years ago. 2 years ago? No, last year, right? Yeah. And he's shown nothing but just incredible ability to play basketball. Since the injury where he had the Liz Frank like foot break or whatever, he's had a great summer league. He's had a phenomenal preseason, and he just looks awesome. He's a guy that, because of the hype around Wembanyama, has completely gone forgotten. His talent is all there, and he's probably going to be the best player to put alongside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's become one of the best perimeter players the league has to offer. So what did they do this year? In the offseason, they lose Jeremiah Earl Robinson. They lose Dario Saric to Golden State, but they bring on Davis Bertans, right? Stretch 4 or stretch 5. And that's pretty much it. The rest of this team is set. SGA is incredible. Just 31, 5, and 5, all NBA player, an incredible array of ability that doesn't just make him a threat during the regular season, but his ability to take you off the dribble makes him a threat in the postseason. He's a phenomenal mid-range creator. They have Josh Giddey, who's an incredible facilitator, rebounder, an explosive scorer, and a decent defender. He's a guy that does everything on a basketball court, and he's still on his rookie scale deal. Jalen Williams, another rookie from last year who was apparently one of the best isolation scorers in the league. Lou Dort, prototypical 3-and-D. And now you're just throwing in Chet Holmgren, who's going to be a rookie, but he's going to be, a second-year player who just spent all of last year watching and learning and then training with the NBA training staff. This is going to be just a dynamite-ass team going into this season. Let's look at what they did last year, right? So last year, 40-42. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, an elite perimeter defender, an elite perimeter scorer, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.6 steals on 51, 34 and a half, so basically 35, and 90 from the free throw line. Josh Giddey, 16, 8, and 6. Jalen Williams, a rookie, 21 years old, 14, 4.5, and 3, and 1.4 steals. Like, the amount of talent on this team on such baby contracts is incredible. They've done such a phenomenal job. So Oklahoma City, pat yourselves on the back. I think you guys are going to win 50 wins this year. The potential on this roster is limitless. So that's what a rebuild looks like. A couple of years ago, you move away from Kevin Durant. You move away from Russell Westbrook and Paul George. You move away from James Harden over the course of the last decade. And you come back and you create this off of all of those trades, all of those draft picks. They've just done such a great job. And now another team that has expedited a rebuild. I think they're going to be a little bit worse this year just because of the fact that everybody else got so much better. And the secret's out, right? The Utah Jazz. I did not think that they were going to be this good last year. I thought they were going to be horrible. And they ended up being so good that they ended up having to tank and just sit players out to lose games so that they could actually get good draft picks. So what did they do? Early in the season, they started the year 10-3. That's crazy. They were 1 in the West. They were number 1 in the West. And then right after the All-Star break, they were 31-31, and then they finished the season 37-45. So they kind of, tank out the rest of the year. They pull off 6 wins, and they lose 14 games. Lauri Markkanen became one of the better players in the league. Ended up being an all-star. 25 points, 8.6 boards, and 2 assists a game, shooting basically 50, 40, 90. He was right there, right on the cusp of it. Jordan Clarkson, still a phenomenal 6-man. Colin Sexton maintained basically what he's always been. And that's pretty much it, right? There's not much that they really did this offseason. They signed Keontae George as the rookie, 16th overall pick. A friend of mine is really big on him. I thought he was really exciting coming into the Summer League. I thought he was really good in Summer League. They trade for John Collins, so just adding a little bit more depth. But I wouldn't be surprised if they really start moving off of some of these players. Legitimately. So going into this year, let me look at their roster for this year. Boom, boom, boom. Going into this year, they have Kelly Olynyk, who's probably going to lose a lot of his minutes for, just said his name, totally spacing on it now, John Collins. Kelly, he's definitely going to be falling out of the roster. Jordan Clarkson is going to be a beloved asset for any other player, any other team that's fighting for championship contention, right? I know we just signed an extension, but expect him to be traded. A lot of this is going to be predicated on building this bright young core. Colin Sexton, Larry Markkinen, Taylor Horton Tucker, Ochai Agbaji, and now Keontae George should be the 5 players that they put a lot of focus on and really make the most of these draft picks. Because if you traded those players like Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert, those draft picks are meant to be, in the 18 to 25 range, right? Your picks are the ones that are supposed to have the value. Your picks are supposed to be the ones in the bottom 10, right? The top 10. But if you're going to be going out there and keeping yourself in the middle because the rest of the West got so good, right? The only team that they can realistically beat up on is my team, the Portland Trail Blazers. So they got to lean one way or the other, or just really go into what these players, the young players like Ochai, who was sensational last year, see what they can really be. But still, this is going to be a good team, really promising, a lot of young talent. And Larry Markkinen is probably going to be in the best shape of his life because he just came out of the Finnish military, right? I know that's kind of weird to say for an athlete, but he did his mandatory military service, so he was working out with military men. And now he's probably going to be pretty shredded going into the season. So I expect him to kick the door down, putting up like 35 a night for the first 2 weeks of the season. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the tip-off. And I know it's 8 o'clock or 8:40, so NBA or NFL is running right now. So I hope you enjoy that Monday night game, and I'll catch you next time.